and the implications of the filibuster's continuing existence on H.R. 1, the federalized elections legislation. But I want to focus on something he said before the Q&A. Because of this piece at blog, this piece that a teacher blogged, talking about after 2 days back at work this week, I've now taught each of my 5 classes in person for the first time in a year. What's happening to America's kids? He said, I taught a higher math class of almost exclusively college-bound students that he hadn't taught until today, even during the hybrid model. He went on to say, look, we got 50 minutes versus the 90 minutes under the all-online classes, so I need you to watch this instructional video before class so we can get right to it. It's a higher math class. These are college-bound students. Because only 50 minutes, we need to get right into practice problems. Nobody watched the video. I wasn't going to reteach the material in the video, so I would incorporate as much instruction as I could. Not long after I started in, I stopped. They were just staring at me. Mm-hmm. He said, like children of the corn or something.
Yeah.
Are any of you going to write any of this down? He asked. A few reached for pencils and notebooks. I continued my instruction as I want to do when I'm teaching. I frequently stop and ask questions to check for student understanding, and so I did. I asked the student a question. The student just stared at me.
Oh, my God. I feel that pain as a coach right now. Oh.
I looked at the student for a moment and then said, you realize I can see you, right? You're not hiding behind a screen with your camera turned off. I said it with a hint of humor, but the dark truth is there. These kids have no idea how to be students.
They don't.
They've completely forgotten. I know 374 days has passed since the last time they were in school, but these college-bound students had been in school for several years before. None of these students is a freshman. They have forgotten how to be students.
They forgot how to interact with each other, too.
And he goes on to say that this partly explains their low grades. They don't engage. And I'm not the only one seeing this. He had a conversation with one of his vice principals, and that administrator said he's talked to other teachers who describe the same phenomenon. That's what they do. They stare.
I'll tell the girls to get in spiking lines, and they just stare at me. And I go, guys, what is going on here? We've been practicing for 3 weeks. It's the strangest thing. You have to deprogram them. I don't know how to do it. I'm struggling.
He describes again, they stare, they sit, and they stare. It's the strangest and scariest thing I've seen on a large scale in all my years of teaching. And so against the backdrop of that reality, anecdotal as it is, but serious, and certainly the academic performance is not anecdotal because there's been a number of studies on it dating back to last spring. This is what Joe Biden says about K-8 education.
I also set a goal before I took office of getting a majority of schools in K-8 fully open in the first 100 days. Now, thanks to the enormous amount of work done by our administration, educators, parents, local, state education officials, and leaders, recent Department of Education survey shows that nearly half of the K-8 schools are open now full-time, 5 days a week for in-person learning. Not yet a majority, but we're really close, and I believe in the 35 days left to go, we'll meet that goal as well.
He's celebrating that? In Europe, they're all open and have been since August.
The only ones left supporting school shutdowns or hybrid learning or acting with torpor in returning to school are the teachers' unions, their acolytes, and the politicians they own. Mm-hmm. To me, this is the issue that should have dominated the press conference and should dominate the national dialogue right now until there is a remedy for it, because you can't unring this bell. You can't go back in time.
But not one reporter there who was called upon, who was on the list, asked about schools. It was deplorable.
For more on all topics covered, including the one I've struck upon, pleased to be joined again, weekly hit with Bret Baier, Fox News anchor. Special report, 5 p.m. Chicago time, of course, during the week. And also the author of the #1 bestseller. Of course, it's a #1 bestseller, but Bret Baier wrote it. 3 Days at the Brink, FDR's Daring Gamble to Win World War II. Bret, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
What about that? I mean, you're the father of young kids, and I can't believe what we know about K through 12 education, what we know about the safety, what even the CDC and Tony Fauci have said, and still we have this just inexplicable incrementalism from the President of the United States and his party.
Yeah, I think that was a major drop of the ball by not asking COVID questions specifically on schools after what the president said in that opening, and also what we've seen from the administration and kind of protecting teachers' unions in a lot of those jurisdictions. I mean, the CDC comes out with these new guidelines saying social distance from 6 to 3 feet in schools, and the teachers' union says, you know what? We don't think we agree with that.
Yeah, we don't believe
So
you. Like they're putting their lives in
It used to
danger.
be follow the science. It used to be follow the science. But now here's the science and scientists saying 6 to 3 feet for kids in school, and the teachers union says no, we don't think so. So that's a major, major problem. And just personally, my kids are going back to in person, but they've been like hybrid off and on. And my 10-year-old son says openly, he says, Dad, I just don't do well on this, staring into the screen. He said, I really, really do better in school. And, he articulated that, but his teacher said the exact same thing.
Wow. This whole thing, I mean, we're going to look back on this. I know this is, a trite. We're going to look back on this But this issue, you can argue about the extent of business restrictions and capacity limitations and so on and so forth. What we have chosen to do, because that's what it is, we have chosen to do with K through 12 education in this country, combined actually with the curriculum, which is a whole nother kettle of fish, but related, is just criminal. And there is going, we talk about reckoning with our profligate spending. There's going to be a reckoning for what we have done over the last year and what we're continuing to do in some jurisdictions with respect to kids' intellectual development.
Well, I mean, listen, the parish I belong to, it's in Bethesda, just outside of D.C., also runs a school. Mm-hmm. And the Monsignor who oversees all of that said that their applications are through the roof. They never stopped in person, never once stopped. They had about 1 week at the beginning, but then were full on back, and they mitigated the issues, did it themselves, and they figured it out. And a few Catholic schools in the region are doing that, and you can't get in because the applications are through the roof.
Well, the rise of school choice could be the silver lining. That is true. So we'll stop there on a positive note. With respect to the filibuster, let's talk about the filibuster a little bit, because Joe Biden, as Ben Sass recounted this week, big fan of the filibuster not so long ago, not so big a fan now. Now it's a relic of Jim Crow, and he wants to slow walk.
Jim Eagle.
Not Jim Eagle, or it makes Jim Crow look like whatever. And now it's something he wants to slow walk away by going back to the, you have to read the telephone book for 24 hours if you want to filibuster. But what is the real play here? Is that his way of saying, Republicans, you better work with us on H.R. 1 to come up with something, or I'm willing to go with my leftist friends and eliminate the filibuster?
Yes, I think that's exactly what it is. And, once you go down the road that it's racist, pretty tough to walk back from that. And the other thing is it's racist, but Kamala Harris used it against Tim Scott's crime reform bill just a few months ago. And Democrats had the most use of it in the past year. So, listen, I think they're hinting that there will be changes. I think they're going to test it with a number of pieces of legislation. And that big one is the voting rights, where, frankly, this is all about taking the moment, consolidating the power. This is what the state issue is about D.C. and Puerto Rico. This is what, the voting rights issue is, and I think that they see an opportunity here, and they're not going to let it pass, even though the sound bites are just rich of defending the filibuster and the rights of the minority.
Now, I know a lot of people watched in horror at that press conference yesterday. The fact that he had a list of reporters, they knew, who they were going to call on before they even began. But was this press conference a setup to implement the 25th Amendment?
Oh, I think that's a stretch. But he's listen. He had a couple of times. I said yesterday he ran into a rhetorical cul-de-sac and couldn't get out. And other presidents have had lists of reporters, but we've not seen like a briefing book by subject, where at times he's reading directly from it. On the issues of foreign policy, it was almost like turn to the page, and just read the graph. And that's different than what we've seen.
Yeah. Actually, we see it here with Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. She can't read. She can't answer a question that's not scripted. Nobody seems to be so concerned about that here in Cook County. And I don't think actually that many people are really concerned about it with respect to Joe Biden. I think this is bait, that chum that the left puts out there. They want people to go hysterical about his mental acuity. The same way, frankly, that I think Trump made a strategic error when he focused on that in advance of the first debate, lowering the bar, taking the eye off of the substance of what Biden is the vessel for. And that's what we're doing again. Rather than talking about the substance in some quarters of what he said yesterday on policies that impact people's actual lives, you get people playing the cheap game of, is Biden going to make it to the spring? This is the 25th. I mean, it isn't that a ruse from the left, or at minimum, aren't they enjoying when the right chooses to go down that path?
Yeah, 100%. The bar is so low that if you come out and make it through, you're a winner, and that's a big expectations game. I think you're right on the substance and the policy. We should look closely at it. I mean, he said they're not going to make the May deadline of getting troops out of Afghanistan, but by next year, he can envision American troops in Afghanistan. Significant policy issue. Says North Korea is the number one foreign policy threat, but they haven't talked to North Korea, haven't even managed to, and it's not going well as far as that outreach. And I think really the biggest one was the filibuster and a kind of a change in how Joe Biden looks at that. And I think the progressives are licking their chops, saying this is the moment to go big. And the fact that Joe Biden met with historians and talked, at length about FDR and kind of changing the paradigm, as he said yesterday, those are big phrases that mean, big things. And he has to have the votes, but he's definitely swinging for the fences.
Well, and the other thing he did on immigration, which was a dominant topic, was essentially say, this is just a seasonal thing. No big deal. We'll let you into the facilities once we've cleaned them up. Then you can look around once we think it won't look bad for the administration. That's our definition of transparency. And unfortunately, because Steve Ducey wasn't one of the reporters that got to ask a question, everybody else is the same. Peter Ducey wasn't one of the ones that got
asked.
Yeah, right. But either Ducey. But everybody else is just reading from a script effectively as well. I mean, when he said, this is the same thing happened under Trump. Oh, wait a second. Excuse me, Mr. President. Illegal apprehensions at the border, people trying to get in this country legally, was up 3x in February, year over year. So it's this isn't just seasonal. No, something different is happening here. I'm not saying it. The Mexican president is saying it. The El Salvadoran president is saying it. I mean, come on, letting him get away with that is malpractice.
Yeah, and then when he says the vast majority of families are being turned back, well, no, 13% was the number.
Right.
As far as the ones going back and the ones staying. Yeah, I mean, it's provable. The data is there that what he's saying about just seasonal, it goes up and goes down. That's not the case. I mean, it's exponentially more than it has been, in part because the message went out. And, it's the people wearing Biden T-shirts that are coming, that are talking to reporters on the border.
Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, special report 5 p.m. weekdays, Chicago time, #1 best-selling author of 3 Days at the Brink, FDR's Daring Gamble to Win WW2. Bret, thanks as always.
We'll see you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
We've had enough of winter and are more than ready for springtime. But before you get too excited, remember, winter can cause widespread damage to your office building door equipment, disrupting service for your customers, and rapidly turn into next fall's emergency repairs. Call Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. and be the company rock star because you took the initiative to repair and maintain those damaged doors now. Regular scheduled maintenance is the key, and Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. has multiple levels of maintenance programs for your company's needs and budget. They'll ensure your doors, grills, and gates are working to specification, as well